So our next session up, we have Dan, who is our, as Benoit said, he's our data hero from Europe. He is based in the Netherlands, and Dan and I actually go back long before Snowflake, part of that community that I mentioned earlier in my talk. And I'm hoping that, you know, part of, you know, Dan's interest in Snowflake came about because he saw me come over to Snowflake and get excited about it. So he is a data analytics consultant, again, based in the Netherlands, with a focus on cloud data analytics. He is SnowPro certified, and he's got a very exciting topic for us today on how to execute the T in ELT. I'm seeing a lot of questions around that on the Q&A, so looking forward to hearing Dan and have him answer those questions for everyone. All right, Dan, take it away. And there he is.
Good morning, good afternoon for the people in Europe. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Snowflake, for having me today and letting me talk about the T in ELT for Snowflake. I think Kent is right. He was one of the reasons why I was having a look at Snowflake a few years ago, because I walk around in the Oracle community for a long time, and I saw a lot of movement from people from Oracle towards Snowflake. So I thought there's really something going on. And that's why I also had a look at Snowflake, and up until now, I think it was a good choice to start making that move. Let me share my screen. Everybody's seeing my screen, okay?
Yep, you're showing fine now.
Yeah, okay, cool, thank you. So my name is Daan Bakboord. Some people know me from my online profile, which is Dan Analytics. So that's a combination of the Dan and Analytics. So if you want to look me up afterwards or after this talk, then you can do that via the links on the left side. So today what I want to cover is how to execute the T in ELT for Snowflake. I already saw a few questions about that in the chat window, in the Q&A window. So maybe I can cover them during my talk, and if not, then I will try to do that afterwards. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about governing data, about loading the data, and then, for the big part, talking about how to transform data. I will just give some examples because there are so many different opportunities that it would be too much to cover them all in this presentation within the 20 minutes I have to do this talk. So, govern data. So data governance and data modeling are closely related. So they are not necessarily the same, but that's a whole other discussion. But in essence, both terms involve the management of the data. Management of data as in terms of following data standards, agree about the actual meaning of the data, reduce redundancies, and see how you can manage the data as a strategic asset. What I saw for for Snowflake was a very interesting partner for data modeling, and that partner is called SQL DBM. What they are offering is a tool which runs completely inside your browser, so that doesn't require any local installations, and you can use that one for database modeling. So I saw a question in a Q&A box about do you have to model the data before you load it into Snowflake? Yeah, if you want to do that, then SQL DBM would be an interesting tool to have a look at. So you can do your database modeling in it, both physically as well as logically. You can do a conversion from other database systems, for instance, Oracle or MySQL, and basically with a click of the button, you can you turn your DBA database from one to the other. You can document your data, so that's for developers like me. Documentation is always yeah, something you don't like. It's very easy to do that with SQL DBM. You can also compare reservations and make alter statements. So you can make some changes to your model, and then use the alter statements to bring these statements into your Snowflake system. With the forward engineering, so you are able with a direct Snowflake DB connection to create your objects into the database, and you can also do it the other way around. So reverse engineering, bring your database into SQL DBM, and all of this without writing a single line of code. If you want to try this out, then you can go to the Snowflake Partner Connect. That's I think it's a very interesting feature within Snowflake. So you can try different tools within the Snowflake ecosystem out just by connecting here. So the most important objects will be created for you, and then you can try things out in Snowflake itself. So loading the data. So one of the benefits of Snowflake is that you can use the power and the flexibility of the platform to transform the data. So what you should do is you should load the data into Snowflake as fast as you can, and then use the features within Snowflake combined with Snowflake to transform the data as you need. I saw another question in the Q&A about which tools you can use to ETL data in and out Snowflake. That's a very difficult question. So for me, it's very difficult to tell you which tool you should use to load data into Snowflake, because there is a very large ecosystem of tools suited to do the job. I think the most important thing to remember is that if the tool talks SQL, then it can probably load data into Snowflake. So in the end, I think it's all a matter of taste and specific functionality, whether you would choose one tool over the other. So it really depends on the use case. So I cannot give you a real good answer of which tool you should use. What I can do is tell you a little bit about the choices we made. So it's relatively easy to get structured and semi-structured data into Snowflake. What we did at my company, Pong in the Netherlands, we chose a few different tools to do the job for us, and we made a selection of, let's say, three tools with various capabilities. If you look at Fivetran, we chose that for the ease of use, because they deliver predefined data pipelines for software as a service applications. So you don't have to worry about the changes in the data model of these applications. Fivetran will handle it for you. So they are especially very strong in the extraction and the loading of ELT. Matillion specifically for Snowflake, because there you can relatively easy build data pipelines via a GUI, and it's tightly integrated and developed together with Snowflake. And next to that, we have a look at Informatica, Informatica Cloud, because that is a complete data integration solution. So that goes further than just building data pipelines. Most important thing to remember is that SQL is the language to query data. So now that we have loaded the data into Snowflake in its raw form, it's time to transform this data. And in this part, I will show you a few options. And the choices I made, they are just an indication of all the things that are possible within Snowflake. I will discuss the following tools. Again, Fivetran, DBT, and Looker. And why I chose these three, because they are interesting in itself, relatively easy to use, but they are also interesting in relation to each other. A few reasons why you would transform the data. So you have the data in its raw form, but then you maybe want to clean the data, so do some formatting, do some validating in the data. Maybe you should combine data from different source systems, or at least different tables. So you want to integrate data. Maybe you want to aggregate some of the data, make some summarizations, do some cross-column calculations. But also you can do some filtering on the data because you don't need it all, or you want to split some columns up. And all of that you can use because you can use the power and the flexibility of Snowflake to transform the data. So in my early days, when we were talking about the ETL, it was always the transformation happened on a separate server. But now with Snowflake, because you can easily add more compute power to your activities, it's very easy to do it inside Snowflake instead of outside Snowflake. If you look at transformations in general, you can, for instance, choose to run your transformations as a view. So you can build a layer of SQL statements on top on top of your previous state. So you start with the raw states, and then you do a SQL statement in a view on top of it, and you can layer that because you can use the power of Snowflake. So that could be a valid design strategy to do it with the views. Another option, and that's most of the times because of performance reasons, of performance considerations, you can create tables or materialized views. If you look at the 510 transformation, that is built on the concept of creating tables. Why 510? Again, because of the ease of use, and the fact that you can just write SQL. So the thing you do is you just create a new transformation. You build a SQL statement. You name, if you give the table a name, you give the table a schema, and you give it a schedule of your choosing. So either when there is new table or new data arrives in 510, or on a specific time schedule, and that's it. Simply create the table and then assign the schedule and then save and run, and there you go. Another opportunity is DBT. DBT is known as the T in ELT. There are a few assumptions to make DBT useful. So one important thing to notice is that the data should already be in the data warehouse. So DBT is not an ETL tool. So the data has to be present. All your logic is in SQL. So if there are, for any reason, transformations needed to be done in, for instance, a language like Python, then you should do it outside of DBT. DBT is not a streaming transformation tool, so all transformations are performed in batch, and transformations are idempotent. So the results of different runs of the same transaction will lead to the same results when it comes to tables and views. So DBT might be an answer for all those people questioning why you need a GUI to build your data pipelines. So in the end, it's all about running SQL queries in a specified sequence. So DBT in action. DBT consists of two components. It's a compiler and a runner. So users write the DBT code in a text editor of their choice. DBT compiles this code and then turns it into raw SQL. And this code is executed on the database. DBT works with models. And every model is exactly one SQL query. And this query defines the resulting data set. And this data set can be tables or views or tables. DBT code is a combination of SQL and Jinja, and that's a templating language for Python. And anything you can do in Jinja, you can do in DBT code. So you can create if statements, for loops, macros, and so on. A DAG, so a directed acyclic graph, is created. So DBT knows the dependencies between the different SQL statements. Sometimes you see DBT and Apache Airflow in close relationship to each other. And then the Apache Airflow that gives some extra opportunities in terms of things like monitoring. An interesting combination is 5Cent and DBT. So where 5Cent is very good in extracting and loading the data, DBT is perfect for transforming this data. So you have the best of both worlds, and these are the 5Cent DBT packages. So for instance, if you look at Oracle NetSuite, they lack sufficient reporting capabilities, and the API for NetSuite is really complex. So if you use 5Cent in combination with DBT, yeah, you have all this data out of the box. The last opportunity of transforming the data, at least in this presentation, is Looker. Looker is lastly acquired by Google. They have an interesting LookML, which is basically an abstraction layer on top of your database. You don't have to write the SQL yourself, but Looker generates the SQL based on things you specify in your models. And basically what you do is you connect Looker to any database that supports SQL queries. You build your model, either you build it yourself or you use Looker blocks. I will come to that a little bit later. And where necessary, you can customize your model, yeah, to your own organization's unique metrics. Yeah, like I said earlier in this session, is that transformations are either stored as a view or they are materialized. Looker basically supports both. So you have a standard LookML that basically acts like a view, and each query will be executed at runtime. But on top of that, you have Looker-derived tables. That's a variant of transformations, and that's basically that can create a materialized view if you persist the data. So you can either choose to use LookML to create these tables, or you can write SQL yourself. And yeah, based on that, you can yeah, basically build, for instance, a fact table. Yeah. The last one also be interesting are the Looker blocks. So there is the business logic is created inside of the LookMLs and in combination with 5Cent. That makes it very easy, again, to start analyzing, for instance, in this for NetSuite. So you can start analyzing complex source systems, but still, because every organization thinks they are unique, create your own customizations where needed. So quickly, how to get started in this modern data architecture. So what you need is, and a very simple architecture, a database, a raw database to load the data, and another database, let's say the analytics database, where you can transform the data, make slices, schemas per different source system, So you can actually give security based on different roles, different users. Make virtual warehouses for each stage in your in this data pipeline. Make different roles for this different stages in the pipeline, and use different tools for these stages in the pipeline. To conclude, for me, it's easy to simply load the data and query the data, and I think that's one of the missions of Snowflake, making things easy, and it is. So it is very easy to get started. You don't have to do a lot of management. Snowflake is very flexible. What is very interesting for me is the Snowflake ecosystem. So you have a lot of tools to choose from. And again, SQL is the language to query data. Everybody knows SQL. So it's very easy to use this database. So you don't have to learn a lot of new languages to use Snowflake. So that's it for my side. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Snowflake, for inviting me. I think we have a few minutes left for some questions.
Yes, we do, Dan. Thanks for all the information. And there's a whole bunch of questions coming in, not only in the Q&A, but in the chat as well. One question that came in from Imad: any suggestions on open source ETL tools to create workflows or data pipelines for Snowflake? Isn't DBT open? Isn't DBT open source?
Yeah, as far as I know, that's open source. Yeah, like I said, there's so much to choose from. I picked these three because I think they work. They serve a different purpose, but and again they can work closely together. They work very smoothly with Snowflake, so that's one of the most important capabilities. And yeah, like I said, there's so much to choose from. I haven't tried them all yet.
That would be hard to do, to try them all. There's just not enough time in the day to do those. Yeah, and if
you think that you have them all, then there are some others again. So yeah, I think the good thing about Snowflake is that you can easily try it out for yourself, and if it doesn't work, then you try something else.
Yeah, and we even have somebody on chat saying that they think Talend is the best open source ETL tool for the cloud databases. Vishal saying that, and Talend, of course, is a Snowflake partner as well. I guess there's a community version of it as well as a paid version. So, like you said, yeah, from the ecosystem perspective, there's quite a few options out there.
And in the end, I really think it also depends on the use case, because there is no one size fits all. So what you also see is that different tools are working side by side and serving a different purpose.
Yeah, and then we just have a question comment from Juan saying, besides the tools you mentioned, is Streams and Tasks a good tool to do transformations?
Yes, I think, and it was in my presentation previously, but because of the time constraints and because it's on the agenda later on, I decided to skip it. But I think it should be very useful.
Well, as it turns out, that's actually our next talk. So I think that's a good place to segue over. And thank you again for your time, Dan. Take a look at the Q&A, see if there's any other questions in there that you might be able to answer while you're on here this morning.
I will have a look.
Appreciate your time. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.